Was this really a flawless American rescue mission deep inside Iran? Or was it a warning shot about how dangerous modern power projection has become? Because when a U.S. F-15E goes down in contested Iranian airspace, the story is bigger than one aircraft and bigger than one crew. It becomes a test of doctrine, intelligence, logistics, political will, and regional deterrence. One isolated airman can suddenly pull two states toward a far wider confrontation. And that is what makes this incident so important. If you're interested in military strategy, global power shifts, and the technologies shaping modern warfare, subscribe to the channel and let me know your thoughts below. The first shock was not the rescue. It was the shoot-down itself. On paper, the F-15E Strike Eagle is not an easy platform to neutralize. It is fast, heavily armed, combat-proven, and built to survive in demanding environments. So when one is lost over Iranian territory, analysts immediately look past the headlines and ask a harder question. What kind of threat envelope was it operating in? And what does that reveal about the battle space? Iran's air defense network is not the most advanced in the world, but it does not need to be perfect. It only needs to create enough uncertainty, enough overlap, and enough risk to complicate U.S. freedom of action. That is the part that matters. The rescue became the headline, but the strategic issue was simpler and more serious. A major American combat aircraft entered hostile space and did not come back intact. And that's when the conversation shifts from tactical drama to strategic vulnerability. Then comes the terrain, and this is where the mission becomes far more difficult than many viewers realize. The Zagros Mountains are not just rough ground on a map, they are a logistical trap. High ridgelines, narrow valleys, unpredictable wind, poor landing zones, and fractured communications all compress time and limit choices. In that kind of environment, even elite rescue forces can lose tempo fast. Aircraft burn fuel, sensors lose line of sight, movement slows, casualty risk rises, and every minute that passes gives local forces more time to close the gap. Reports suggest the recovery zone was in terrain that strongly favored concealment but punished mobility, which creates a brutal dilemma. The isolated survivor may be harder for enemy ground units to find quickly, but extraction teams also inherit the same problem. They have to get in, stabilize, and get out before the ground picture collapses around them. But this is where the strategy begins to unravel. Because difficult terrain does not just slow rescuers, it amplifies every flaw in the entire recovery system. That leads directly to doctrine versus reality. Personnel recovery doctrine sounds clean when explained on a briefing slide. Locate, isolate, support, recover, exfiltrate. In practice, contested airspace breaks that sequence apart. Rescue doctrine depends on suppression, air cover, ISR, jamming, communications, and timing working together with almost no friction. But real operations do not behave that way. Aircraft take damage. Landing windows close. Signals degrade. Ground threats spread faster than expected. Even if every unit involved performs well, the environment can still turn a tightly planned mission into a chain of improvisations. That is why this incident matters beyond the heroism involved. It shows the difference between what modern rescue doctrine promises and what it can reliably deliver under pressure. The U.S. military is exceptionally good at this mission set, but exceptionally good is not the same as low risk. If this changes how you see modern warfare, hit like, because this isn't just about one rescue package. It's about whether even elite systems are becoming more fragile in heavily contested zones. And fragility is the hidden issue here. Deep rescue missions depend on a small ecosystem of highly specialized platforms and crews. Helicopters capable of low-level penetration, fixed-wing aircraft that can refuel, transport, coordinate, or support. ISR assets overhead. Electronic warfare support. Secure communications architecture. Highly trained teams that cannot be regenerated overnight. If even part of that chain is damaged or disrupted, the cost rises sharply. Reports surrounding this operation include claims of equipment losses in aircraft, abandoned, or destroyed during exfiltration, though not all details have been officially confirmed. If true, that would matter enormously, not only because of the immediate mission risk, but because it would expose a broader problem in modern U.S. force design. Many of the platforms needed for these operations are finite, expensive, and difficult to replace quickly. Critics argue that the defense industry can still build exceptional systems, but sustainment, spare parts, and production timelines remain major bottlenecks. So the question becomes uncomfortable very quickly. How many deep, high-risk recoveries can a military sustain before tactical success starts generating strategic strain? Then there is the intelligence problem, which may be the least visible but most decisive layer of the story. In an operation like this, it is not enough to know where your isolated personnel are. You also need a reasonably accurate picture of who else is moving, who is searching, what local networks are doing, whether signals are compromised, and how fast hostile forces can converge. According to open-source intelligence discussions, US ISR likely played a major role in maintaining awareness during the operation. But mountainous terrain creates blind spots, fragmented coverage, and delays in interpretation. Some defense analysts believe the United States may have had strong enough surveillance to maintain a near-continuous understanding of the search area. Others argue that such claims are often overstated after the fact, especially in terrain where line of sight and local movement patterns can distort the picture. That matters because rescue operations fail when commanders become too confident in an intelligence picture that is only partially true. Comment below. Is this a strategic masterstroke or a gamble? Because one bad read on local force movement, one missed signal, one overestimated corridor of safety, and a rescue mission can become a far larger crisis. And crises like this are never just military. They are political almost immediately. Once an American airman is isolated in enemy territory, military planning is no longer happening in a vacuum. Domestic pressure rises. Adversaries see propaganda opportunities. Allies watch for signs of resolve. Commanders know that delay carries strategic costs, but speed carries operational costs. That tension is where political pressure starts shaping military risk tolerance. No administration wants a prolonged search, turning into a hostage scenario or a symbolic defeat. That means the window for decision-making can narrow fast, especially if the isolated individual is senior, identifiable, or already central to public messaging. Analysts warn that this is one of the most dangerous points in any modern conflict, when political urgency compresses military judgment. The mission still has to be planned professionally, but the appetite for risk often changes at the top before it changes on the ground. And that is why operations like this can become high-stakes gambles, even when they end in success. The bigger issue, though, is what this signals globally. If the United States can conduct recovery operations inside defended Iranian territory, and bring its personnel home, that projects reach, confidence, and alliance reassurance. It tells partners that Washington is still willing to take risk. But there is another side to that message. If such a mission requires enormous force concentration, significant exposure, and potentially the loss of valuable aircraft, then rivals are learning something too. Iran studies the cost. Russia studies the tempo. China studies the dependencies. They all watch for the same thing. Not whether the US can act, but how expensive action has become. That matters in every future theater, from the Gulf to the Indo-Pacific. Because the lesson may not be, America remains dominant. The lesson may be, America can still project power, but the margin is shrinking in dense threat environments. Subscribe if you want more deep dives into global military power, because this is where one rescue stops being a dramatic incident and becomes a case study in the future of deterrence. So how should this operation be understood? As a success? Yes, but not as a simple one. It appears to show courage, discipline, and the ability of U.S. forces to coordinate under pressure. It also appears to show that contested recovery missions are entering a more dangerous era, where air superiority cannot be assumed, logistics are exposed, intelligence is imperfect, and political pressure accelerates decisions. If this model works repeatedly, Washington may become more willing to authorize bold recovery and strike operations in hostile airspace. But if it fails next time, if personnel are captured, if aircraft losses mount, if escalation expands, the consequences could go far beyond one mission. They could reshape alliance confidence, regional deterrence, and the balance of risk between major powers. And that leaves the real question. In the next decade, will the world's strongest military still be able to guarantee recovery and control in hostile skies? Or are these missions becoming so costly that even success starts to look like warning? If you want more deep analysis on military power and global strategy, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share your perspective in the comments.